General Hospital will reveal that under the guise of a repentant man, Cyrus secretly devises a sophisticated plan to manipulate the situation and evade responsibility for a series of mysterious murders. He knows he is under police scrutiny, especially after the suspicious deaths caused by Digitalis. Investigative agencies are tightening their grip, and suspicions about him are spreading within the medical community and law enforcement. But instead of panicking or hiding, Cyrus chooses to strike first. He decides to make himself the victim and use Elizabeth as a pawn in his intricate game. Understanding how the hospital system operates, Cyrus orchestrates a perfect fake heart attack. He adjusts his heart rate through a stimulant, making his vital signs abnormal in a controlled manner. Then, in a public place, he suddenly clutches his chest, staggers, and dramatically collapses. The people around him panic and call for an ambulance, and as planned, Cyrus is rushed to General Hospital in critical condition. His appearance at the hospital quickly attracts the attention of both medical staff and those who had previously suspected him. However, what no one expects is his careful planning. When he arrives at the hospital, Cyrus knows for sure that Elizabeth will be the one to care for him. This is not a coincidence but part of his detailed plan. He exploits the hospital's understaffing and the ongoing chaos to ensure that Elizabeth is the one who will directly monitor his condition. As soon as he is transferred to the treatment area, Cyrus begins playing the role of a weak patient, appearing cooperative and grateful to those treating him. He is no longer the cold, menacing villain but instead a man who seems to have changed, constantly expressing regret for his past mistakes. He tells the doctor that he tried to make amends by volunteering at patient care facilities, claiming that he only wants to help those in need, but everyone is against him. However, behind that weak exterior lies a sharp and ruthless mind. He observes Elizabeth, memorizing every detail of her work routine, waiting for the right moment to execute the next step of his plan. In the first few days, he simply behaves like a normal patient, following medical instructions, making it impossible for anyone to suspect that he is hiding a larger conspiracy. But as trust begins to form, as Elizabeth gradually lowers her guard and views him as a real patient, Cyrus knows it's time to strike. Taking advantage of Elizabeth's compassion and sense of responsibility, Cyrus proceeds with the next step of his devious plan. With careful calculation, he secretly poisons himself with Digitalis, a drug that can cause arrhythmias and acute heart failure if not treated promptly. He knows the exact dosage needed to cause danger while still maintaining control of the situation. To avoid suspicion, Cyrus picks the perfect timing, right during Elizabeth's shift, for the crisis to occur. As the poison begins to take effect, he pretends to panic, his breath becoming rapid, his pulse irregular, and his skin pale. Alarms sound as his condition worsens. Elizabeth, unaware that this is a premeditated plot, immediately rushes to save him. She tries to stabilize his heart rate, doing everything in her power to help him. However, just as Elizabeth focuses all her attention on saving him, Cyrus pushes everything to the limit. He falls into a fake cardiac arrest, forcing the hospital to call in another doctor to intervene. This is the moment Cyrus has been waiting for. Isaiah, a renowned doctor, immediately takes control of the emergency case. With his extensive experience, he quickly uses resuscitation measures to save Cyrus, making the entire hospital staff witness a flawless performance. Cyrus goes from being a suspect to a poor victim, almost losing his life due to a serious medical mistake. When he regains consciousness, Cyrus shows no anger or frustration but quietly expresses disappointment and sorrow. He claims that he doesn't want to make a big deal out of it but can't help questioning Elizabeth's treatment. With cunning, he doesn't directly accuse her but only suggests that a serious mistake occurred. This quickly sparks an internal investigation. Medical records are manipulated, and notes are subtly altered, all leading to the same conclusion: Elizabeth is responsible for this incident. Soon, Elizabeth finds herself under suspicion. The hospital directors have no choice but to suspend her for an investigation. Continuous questions surround her during lengthy interrogations, leaving Elizabeth mentally exhausted. Her career, reputation, and the trust of her colleagues begin to waver. Meanwhile, Cyrus, with the appearance of a victim who narrowly escaped death, calmly observes everything unfolding as planned. He not only escapes the pursuit of the law but also makes Elizabeth the scapegoat, bearing all the consequences for him. While Elizabeth is being pressured by a series of baseless accusations, she faces not only harsh questions from the hospital board but also alienation from her colleagues. The pressure from the media and public opinion makes her feel completely isolated, with no one supporting her. From a dedicated doctor, she suddenly becomes the center of a serious medical scandal, suspected of causing the deaths of multiple patients. Though she tries to stay calm, Elizabeth can't help but feel desperate in the nightmare that Cyrus has set up for her. However, just as Elizabeth becomes trapped in the spiral of suspicion, Lucky and Jason begin to see the irregularities in the entire case. They both share one thing in common: they understand Cyrus's true nature and know that he has never truly repented. What is happening can't be just a coincidence. Lucky, with his experience as a former police officer, notices too many inconsistencies. The evidence against Elizabeth seems to appear too perfectly, as though it was orchestrated beforehand. Jason, though less concerned with procedural investigations, uses his sharp intuition to recognize that Elizabeth is merely a pawn in Cyrus's plan. Anger builds within both of them as they witness Elizabeth being driven to the edge. Jason, who always acts on instinct and is not afraid to use drastic measures, immediately begins planning his revenge against Cyrus in his own way. He doesn't believe in waiting for the legal system to handle it because he knows all too well that Cyrus is a master manipulator, someone who can turn guilt into triumph in the blink of an eye. For Jason, justice cannot come from endless investigations, he needs to act immediately. Lucky, though more restrained, cannot stand by while Elizabeth is exploited. He is no longer a police officer, but his investigative skills are still intact. He decides to approach the case more methodically, delving into medical records, digitalis reports, and Cyrus's condition before his accident. Every small detail could be a clue to reverse the game. Recognizing their shared goal, Lucky and Jason put aside their differences in approach to cooperate. They follow the remaining traces, from Cyrus's secretive conversations to the nurses and doctors who may have been bribed, to the altered medical files. They know that in order to rescue Elizabeth, they not only need to expose the truth but also act quickly before Cyrus wipes away all traces. The only problem is they don't know that Cyrus has already planned for this and will not let anyone stand in his way easily. Cyrus is not easily exposed because he has meticulously calculated every step. He knows that Jason and Lucky will not give up, but that doesn't worry him. On the contrary, he has anticipated their reactions and is proactively controlling the situation. When suspicions about Elizabeth start to arise within the hospital, Cyrus continues to manipulate public opinion by reinforcing his image as an innocent victim. He pretends to be weak, showing fear when talking about what happened, making everyone believe that he is genuinely a harmed individual. Not stopping there, he silently eliminates any threat that could uncover the truth. Important medical records that could prove the falsity of his condition gradually disappear or are altered. Surveillance footage from the time he poisoned himself suddenly encounters technical errors. Some hospital staff who may have witnessed something suspicious receive warnings or are even bribed into silence. With his underground influence, Cyrus has erased almost all traces that could jeopardize his perfect plan. Meanwhile, Elizabeth is pushed into an increasingly unfavorable situation. The questions in the interrogations grow more intense, and all the evidence points to her. The hospital board no longer sees her as a dedicated doctor, but as a careless, even dangerous person capable of causing patient deaths. Every time she tries to defend herself, her arguments are dismissed by the fabricated evidence that Cyrus had skillfully arranged beforehand. Elizabeth's mental state gradually deteriorates, and she begins to feel there is no escape from this nightmare. Jason and Lucky, despite their best efforts, also face numerous obstacles. Every time they find a clue, it seems to disappear right before their eyes. Jason suspects that someone in the hospital is helping Cyrus, protecting him from the investigation. Lucky, with his investigative experience, tries to trace the documents and testimonies of hospital staff, but everything is arranged to point in one direction, accusing Elizabeth. Amid all this chaos, Cyrus stands outside, calmly observing everything like a chess player watching his pawns move according to plan. He is not worried about being exposed because he believes he has control of the entire game. When he sees Jason and Lucky struggling in despair, a sinister smile forms on his face. But even though his plan seems flawless, there is one thing Cyrus hasn't accounted for: Jason and Lucky are not the kind to give up easily. Without a bolder plan, Elizabeth may have to face severe consequences from the game Cyrus has set up. But if there is even the smallest flaw in his perfect plan, Jason and Lucky will not hesitate to use it to bring him down. And if that happens, Cyrus may face a fate far more brutal than anything he ever imagined.